अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. Sarvebhyo Namaha. We have completed so far the first 20 shlokas of the 16th chapter. To do a quick recap, in the first 3 shlokas of the 16th chapter, we learnt about the 26 daivi qualities or behaviors of human beings. And then in the subsequent 17 shlokas, we learnt about the 30 asuri. Sorry, there is a spelling mistake here. Let me correct that right away. This should be asuri qualities. Asuri qualities and behaviors. So, 20 shlokas, we have learnt 56 qualities, 26 daivi and 30 asuri. Of course, this number 30 is the way I have counted them. They could be slightly different if somebody counts in a different manner. So, roughly 56 qualities in all. Now, we have 4 more shlokas left in the 16th chapter where Sri Bhagavan sums up what he wants to say in the 16th chapter. So we will do those 4 shlokas today, and then we will do an overview of the Gita. What is it that Bhagavad-gita wants to teach us as a whole? So now I'll move forward. The 21st shloka of the 16th chapter is as follows. Trividham narakasyedam dvaram nashanam atmanah kamakrodhastata lobha tasmadetat tyajet. Trividham narakasya idam dwaram nashanam atmanah kamaha krodha tatha lobha tasmat etat trayam. Now, those 30 asuri qualities that he talked about, he is summing them up, consolidating them into just 3. He says 3 qualities or 3 particular traits in human beings are the doors to hell or doors to hellish existence. And they are the fountains of these other qualities. All qualities, all the asuri qualities come from these 3 qualities. So this is the triadic doorway to hell. He says, Trividham narakasya idam. Trividham means triadic. Okay, threefold, triadic. Narakasya, of a hellish existence. Idam dwaram, this doorway, which is triadic in nature, and is destructive to the self. Nashanam, atmanaha nashanam. So, what are the 3 elements? Kamaha, lust or greed, or lust or desire. Krodha, anger. Tatha lobha. Lobha means greed. So, we have already discussed each of these earlier. Now, he is summing up everything into these 3. He says everything begins from these 3. And he says, Tasmat etat trayam tyajet. So the shloka's translation will be like this: lust, kama, anger, greed, anger, krodha, and greed, lobha, comprise the triadic doorway to hellish existence, naraka, and lead to the destruction of the self. Hence, these 3 must be given up. So I've made a small visual, the 3 qualities of this destructive triad, nashakatrayam. We can call them nashakatrayam because that's how the shloka uses this word. Nashanam atmanah, destructors of the self. So a destructive triad having kama, krodha and lobha. This triad gives rise to all those different asuri qualities that we studied, like darpa, dambha, abhimana, ajnana, ashaucha, asatya, anachara, pravritti, nivritti, aveka, parushya. Everything comes from these 3 qualities. And then what happens? Then there is naraka or hellish existence for that person. So the more asuri qualities we allow within ourselves, the greater the hellish existence that we will experience. On the other hand, what happens if we eliminate them? We will see that going forward. Next shloka, Shri Bhagavan says, Etair vimuktaha kaunteya. Etair vimukta kaunteya. Tamodvaraistribhirnaraha. Acharatyatmana shreyaha. Tato yati parangatim. He says, Etaihi vimuktaha. A person who is free from these 3, O Kaunteya, tamodvaraihi, these are the doors to darkness. There he said naraka, here he is saying tamas. Tamas means darkness. So hellish existence is actually darkness. Tamo dwaraihi tribihi, these three doors to hellish existence and darkness. A person who is free from these three doors to hellish existence, acharati atmanaha shreyaha, uh, does things which are good for himself or herself. So, such a person who is now free from these three will naturally do things which are good for themselves. And then what happens? Tato yati parangatim. And thereafter achieves a superior state of existence. Paramgatim. Paragati means superior or the supreme state of existence. So, such a person does things which are good for themselves and achieves the higher state of existence. The translation of this shloka would be, O Kaunteya, one who is free from these three doors to darkness, acts for the good of the self, and thereafter goes to the supreme state of existence. So it's as simple as that. We need to contemplate within ourselves what are the bad things that we have, what elements of kama, krodha, lobha, greed we have within us, because of which those other asuri qualities may be present in our lives, and systematically work to remove them. Let go of things like we discussed a few sessions back, letting go of attachments, letting go of our wants, letting go of things that we very badly want to have in this world, which seem to give us happiness, which we are pursuing for happiness, letting them go and looking inside, looking for those daivi qualities, contemplating on those daivi qualities. That is the path forward. And by doing that, we experience that enormous inner peace and happiness. We become free from disturbances internally and experience real, genuine happiness. So, for your benefit, I have actually compiled this as I was conducting these sessions. I made these notes of these 26 daivi qualities and the 30 asuri qualities in this word file, and this is now run into 14 pages, about 4,000 words in 14 pages. And whatever I have noted here, of course, you can write much more than this. You can elaborate on each of these, give examples. We get a lot of examples in today's world for both daivi and asuri qualities. We see a lot of good people with good qualities, sacrificing for others, doing work selflessly, accepting, responsibility, even if it means some sacrifice on their part, sometimes taking blame for things which are not their fault, allowing or tolerating people, accusing them for things which are not their fault, and not blaming others for their shortcomings or for things which go wrong. We see a lot of good people in this world, and we should learn to emulate them. We should observe them closely and see what we can take from them. We also see Asuri people, and that's plentifully available, especially in the newspapers. If you're reading the newspapers, magazines, they make money on reporting the bad things that happen in society, largely speaking. Of course, the media does report good things too, but we do see a lot of these Asuri behavior. In fact, now there is a news item that's going on. You might have read about this murder that happened recently, and which came to light a couple of days ago. This young girl who's barely in her 20s, I mean, in her mid 20s, and has got a lover. She was married, has a 6-year-old child through her husband, killed her husband, murdered her husband for whatever reason known to her, and murdered in an extremely brutal manner. Not just killed him in some simple way by giving him some poison, but gave him poison and then, uh, you know, stabbed him and put him into a drum and poured cement into the drum, cut up his body. My God, if you read that, it's worse than watching a horror movie. And this kind of a personality went with that lover to some resort after doing all this and spent 15 days of sensual enjoyment. Can you? I can't believe. I mean, this is a real story or it's just fiction. It sounds more fiction than fiction, and it's horrible. So, Asuri qualities, as we are studying them, we get some examples like this, which are extreme cases. And this morning when I was meditating, this thought came to my mind: if somebody like the asuras we read in our Bhagavad Leela, we read about Putana coming to kill Krishna by applying poison on her breast. Now, if Putana reads this story, she will not believe that somebody like this exists, because she will think that nobody can be this wicked. I mean, this is extreme heights of wickedness. So uh, we read all this, and so we should be able to relate, and we should know. Of course, that's an extreme case, but we see wickedness existing, or asuri qualities existing in much milder forms too, and we should be able to identify those subtle forms as well, not only in others, but beginning with ourselves. Within us, where do these things exist? By looking at this list and contemplating on it, I hope that you will be able to also identify, like I do, try to identify things which are present in us, which we should work to get rid of, eliminate. And why should we do that? The Bhagavad Gita says by doing that, we become free and become eligible to attain the supreme state of existence, the supreme happiness which comes from within us. That is the purpose of life. So, with this, we are at the end of the 16th chapter. The last two shlokas now we will read. In the 23rd shloka of the 16th chapter, Sri Bhagavan says, Yashastra vidhimutsrijya vartate kamakaratah na sa siddhimavapnoti na sukham na parangatim. So here in these two shlokas, Sri Bhagavan highlights the importance of Shastra. Shastra, I'll just explain what it means, is the basis for all dharma. The daivi qualities comes from Shastra, or we learn what the daivi qualities are from Shastra. And how to live a dharmic life is given in Shastra, and we must live dharma, we must live by dharma according to Shastra. So here he says, Yaha Shastra vidhim utsrijya, one who neglects or discards the injunctions, the instructions of the Shastra, vartate kamakarataha, and lives by his whimsical desires. Kamakarataha means driven by his whimsical desires. Vartate means exists or lives. Na sasiddhim avapnoti. Such a person does not get the perfection. The perfection that he referred to in the previous shloka, where he said, param gatim, the supreme state of existence, that is not available to a person who discards the Shastra or ignores the Shastra, does not know the Shastra, and lives whimsically, does things whatever they want by their own whim. Such a person, na sasiddhim avapnoti, does not attain perfection, na sukham na parangatim, does not attain the supreme state of existence, nor happiness. Such a person does not get happiness. Okay? After abandoning the injunctions of Shastra, one who exists whimsically pursuing their material desires attains neither perfection nor happiness nor the supreme state of existence. And then Sri Bhagavan concludes the Bhagavad Gita with the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita with this shloka. He says, Tasmat Shastram Pramanam Te Karya Karya Vyavasthitau Jnatva Shastra Vidhanoktam Karma Kartumi Harhasi. He says, therefore, Shastram Pramanam Te. Shastra is your Pramana. Pramana means the source of knowledge or the reference for how to do things, how to live by things, the reference to resolve conflict. Okay, the authority. Pramana means the authority. Shastra is your authority. Karya akarya vyavasthitav. In all situations of what is to be done and what is not to be done. Karya and akarya. That which ought to be done and that which ought not to be done. Okay, dharma and adharma. For both dharma and adharma, Shastra is your reference. If Shastra says you must do it, then you must do it. If Shastra says that something should not be done, then that should not be done. Okay? Jnatva Shastra Vidhana Uktam. Knowing what the Shastra says. Shastra Vidhana Uktam. What is uh, described by the Vidhan, by the rules, the norms in the Shastra. Uktam means what is described by the Vidhana of the Shastra. Karma kartum iha arhasi. You ought to do all your activities in this world. All the activities karma, kartum to do, iha means in this world, arhasi, you ought to. You ought to do all your activities in this world according to the instructions described by the Shastra, after knowing them, after studying them. So, therefore, Shastra is your source of reference for what should and should not be done. You ought to do your activities after understanding the injunctions of Shastra and in accordance with them. So now the question comes, what is Shastra? What do you refer to by Shastra? Now, in general, we know The English translation of Shastra could be just scripture. Right? So, what do we mean by scripture or reference book? Now, in the Vedic system, or what is today called by the government as the Indian knowledge system, the Veda is the basis for Shastra. Veda is the original Shastra. So, what is the Veda? The Veda is also referred to as Shruti. The Veda is also called Apaurushaya, means it's not something created by any person, including Sri Bhagavan. Veda, just like Bhagavan exists eternally, Veda also exists eternally. Veda is Shruti. It is not created. It exists eternally. It exists in a subtle form, as we say, sound or Shruti. Okay, it is something that is received by very powerful personalities, very great spiritually evolved personalities. It is received by them through their powers and then transmitted to their disciples. And from guru to disciple, this Shruti by repetition. The guru says, the disciple repeats. The guru says it again, the disciple repeats again. And in this manner, the Veda is to be learned. Veda originally is not something that is written down. It's not written down and then, like we do today, photocopied or made copies of and then studied from a book. It's actually heard from the Guru. The way the Guru utters it, it's meant to be uttered exactly in that manner. There is no question of accent. There's no different accent, this accent. Of course, there are different variations in the way in which the uttering happens, but following one of the variations that is received from the Guru, one utters the Veda, and then by following whatever it says, the meaning of the Veda, living according to those meanings, following those meanings in one's life. Okay, now the Veda by itself is very elaborate and very subtle. It gives us a lot of different things. The Veda tells us, for example, very broadly speaking, how to live happily in material existence, in this samsara. We all seek happiness, we seek sensual enjoyment, we seek different types of uh, happiness with our body, with our mind, etc. So, within the domain of that, within the domain of what our body and our mind are capable of experiencing, the Veda tells us how to get enjoyment, how to get material enjoyment. So, this is one type of knowledge that the Veda gives, and this is called the Karma Kanda portion of the Veda. The Karma Kanda is about how to do karma in a manner that gives us happiness, which is according to the rules of dharma and which is it is not harmful to others. Rather, it gives happiness to not only us but others too. Right? By doing that, we go to a higher state of existence in this material world, in this material existence. So, in the earlier times, when Veda was the dominant body of knowledge in society, in human society, um, people thought, or many people, a majority of the population who followed the Veda considered that the goal of life is to go to Swarga Loka, Swarga. Swarga is a higher state of existence than our current state of existence, which is called Bhuloka. So in Swarga, people who have done a lot of dharmic activity, who have followed the Veda very strictly, who have lived by Shastra in a very strict and disciplined manner, lived a very pure life, uh, aspiring for a higher state of existence in future, aspiring for the enjoyment that only Swarga can give. So such people become eligible. Okay, it's not very easy, but it's possible. Following the Veda over many lifetimes, people become eligible to attain Swarga. And by doing our duties sincerely, we are able to go to that. That's what the Karma Kanda portion teaches us. But then the Shastra, the Veda, does not only talk about that. It also talks about what is called as Upasana Kanda and Jnana Kanda. Upasana Kanda refers to the worship of specific devatas, different types of devatas who bestow certain types of benefits to us in the present life itself, not only in the future life, but even in the present life. And even higher than that is what is called as the Jnana Kanda. Now, the Jnana Kanda portion of the Veda, to which the Bhagavad-gita corresponds, the Jnana Kanda portion tells us that there is something even higher than Swargaloka. There is something higher than material existence, and that is becoming free from material existence and discovering our true self. Our true self is not material, but it is spiritual in nature, it is eternal. Material existence gives us a body, a material body like this, which is temporary. And after one birth, we take another birth, also getting another temporary body. So we transmigrate through temporary bodies, and whatever we do to increase our enjoyment within that domain is always temporary and fleeting. It only lasts for some time. On the other hand, if we are able to discover our true self through jnana and through bhakti, then we can discover or attain our eternal life. And this is a subject of jnana kanda. And this portion of the Veda is also called the Upanishad portion. The Upanishad portion directs our attention away from Svargaloka and to our real self. And this is where the Bhagavad Gita begins. In the second chapter of the Gita, Sri Bhagavan systematically does what is called as Khandan. Khandan means refutation or rejection of the Karmakanda portion. He says going to Swarga is not the goal, and that is only for people who are less intelligent. People who are more intelligent should pursue the higher goal of trying to become free from material existence and discovering their eternal existence. Okay, so the rest of the Bhagavad Gita is focused on that. It teaches us how to discover that eternal existence, come out of samsara altogether. And the following of dharma that is spoken about in the, for example, now in the 16th chapter, we talked about the daivi and asuri qualities. It's all pertaining to how to prepare ourselves to go towards that goal, that eternal existence goal. So I talked about the Veda. Now, at the start of the Kali Yuga, what happens is the Veda is existing in the same form, but slowly people's intelligence in the Kali Yuga comes down. People in Kali Yuga, people like us, are considered to be less intelligent than human beings who lived before us. Intelligence diminishes in the Kali Yuga. That's what the Shastra says. The Bhagavatam, for example, says, Prayena alpayushas sabhyah kalau asmin yuge janaha mandaha sumandamatayo mandabhagyahi upatritaha. So in Kali Yuga, people's fortunes become less. They become less intelligent. They engage extremely, increasingly in adharma and so on. So Veda becomes almost inaccessible to them. Veda becomes very difficult to understand with that kind of intelligence. And so, to make it easier for even the dharmic people also find it difficult to understand the Vedas. So, for their benefit, uh, Sri Bhagavan appears as Vyasa, as Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa, is also called Veda Vyasa. The word Vyasa means Vedaha Vyastaha Yenasaha, means one who divided the Veda into four: Rig, Yajus, Sama, Atharva. So Vyasdevji, as we call him, he helps us to understand by preparing or developing or making available other Shastra, the Puranas, for example. The Puranas are Shastra which is helping us, whose purpose is to help us understand the Veda. The Purana helps us to complete our understanding. Purayati iti Puranam. It is not that the Veda is incomplete, it's our understanding that's incomplete, and the Veda and the Puranas help us to make that complete, make that understanding complete. so, so, the Puranas, along with the Puranas, we also have what are called as the Smriti Shastra. Smriti Shastra are Shastra written by various great personalities, sages, scholars, like Manu, for example, writes the Manu Smriti. Yajnavalkya, the sage called Yajnavalkya, has a work called the Yajnavalkya Smriti. Similarly, the sage Narada is something called Narada Smriti, or the Narada Pancharatra is another book. So, in this way, there are different types of um, literature developed by great scholars, sages, personalities, and commentaries written on them. They are also considered as part of Shastra. They are also Shastra. And of course, we have the two great itihasas handed down to us, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. They are very much a part of Shastra. So the Shastra that we are studying is a universe which comprises the different texts which I mentioned, beginning with the Veda. And all of them are based on the Veda. Everything is aligned to the Veda. So apart from this, we also have the other schools, other darshanas called the Nyaya Darshana, the Sankhya Darshana, Mimamsa, Vaisheshika, Yoga, and so on, which are aligned to Shastra and which are aligned to the Veda, and which help us understand various other concepts and things which we are trying to study now. So altogether, Shastra is a huge universe, and the Bhagavad Gita is a small part of it. But the Bhagavad Gita by itself covers the essential knowledge that we need to know to discover our true self and experience genuine happiness. So going forward, I'll touch upon some of the key ideas in Bhagavad Gita. Essentially, Bhagavad Gita is about dharma. And what is dharma? We have seen this before. Dharanat dharma ityahuhu dharmo dharayate prajaha yasyat dharana sanyuktah sa dharma iti katyate. Dharma, which is dharma means which dharma is that which comes from dharana, meaning sustenance, and dharma sustains the population. So anything that bears or sustains has the property of sustenance is called dharma. That's a broad understanding of dharma, and we saw what we mean by dharma in the 16th chapter. Now, dharma distinguishes human beings from animals, and this shloka comes from Hitopadesha. Hitopadesha is a well known book on niti, which tells us what is proper conduct, how to conduct ourselves in line with dharma in an intelligent manner. Ahara nidra bhayamaitunancha samanametat pashubhir naranam dharmo hi tesham adhiko vishesho dharmena hinaf pashubhis samanaha. Dharma is a distinguishing character. Like I say, for example, let's say sweetness of sugar or hotness of fire. Now, when you look at sugar or when you think about sugar, what is the first thing that comes to mind? The sweetness of sugar. Sweetness is that property in sugar which distinguishes it from the other ingredients that we eat, right? We add sugar to something to make it sweet, but we don't need to add anything to sugar to make it sweet because sweetness is inherently present in sugar, and sweetness distinguishes sugar from other things. Similarly, fire. When we think of fire, what comes to mind? It's hotness, it's heat. We don't need to heat fire. We actually heat other things with fire. We use fire to heat other things, but we don't need to make fire hot, right? So sweetness or hotness are properties that distinguish sugar and fire from other items which are different from them. In the same way, dharma is that thing which is meant to be inherently present in a human being, which can distinguish that human being from animals. That's what he's trying to say here. Ahara nidra bhayamaitunam cha. Ahara, food, sleep, nidra, bhaya, fear, and maithunam or sex. So these four things are present in both samana metatu pashubhir naranam. These are present in both human beings and animals. Samanam. Human beings and animals are same when it comes to these four things. These are present in both of them. But dharmohi tesham, kesham naranam. Naranam dharmaha adhikaha visheshaha. In human beings, there is one more additional thing called dharma. Okay, a human being has the potential to develop another thing called dharma apart from these four, and therefore, dharmena hinaha pashubhis samanaha. A person, a human being who is devoid of dharma is nothing other than an animal. A human being who doesn't have dharma in them is only an animal, is merely an animal, right? This is a very revealing shloka. Dharma is that which is beyond natural instinct. Animals live by natural instinct, but human beings can do something which is to go beyond natural instinct, and only human beings can do that. Animals cannot do it, right? So, therefore, this shloka tells us why it is so essential for us to think about dharma all the time and live dharma as if, like it says, um, there's a shloka which says, Grihita eva kesheshu mrityuna dharmamacharet. One should practice dharma as if death is holding you by the hair. Okay, we should practice dharma as if death is holding us by the hair. It's not Dharma is not something that's to be practiced in the part time. After I become 60 years, I'll think about dharma. Now let me do my work, my responsibility. No, dharma is about responsibility. So, dharma is not something that is to be done after retirement or when we have some spare time. Dharma is something to be done all the time. It's something that should be practiced with every breath of our life. So, the essence of dharma is seva bhav, and this is what the Gita is trying to say. Dharma is fine, but we should also know this. We should know, and this is very important, because what is it that fuels dharma? Dharma is fueled by seva bhav. Seva bhav is, we'll talk a little bit about seva bhav, but before I go there, I want to point out that it's because of seva bhav that dharma leads to sukha. So, this question of how does dharma lead to sukha? Why is it that dharma gives happiness? We talked about dharma is that which sustains us and gives us what our purpose of life is, which is happiness. And so the question of why is it or how is it? What is it that enables dharma to give sukha? And the answer is that the essence of dharma is seva bhav. And dharma is meant to be done with seva bhav. Dharma is not just an external physical activity done mechanically. Dharma is fueled by a mentality. Like in the last class too, somebody asked this question about, what is the difference between doing these activities, with greed and not with greed. It's a mentality. The mentality distinguishes a person doing an activity from being dharmic or adharmic, and that is the mentality of seva bhav. And the opposite of this is adharma, and adharma is characterized by swartha bhav. The opposite of seva bhav is swartha bhav. And because of swartha bhav, adharma gives dukkha. You see, because of seva bhav, dharma leads to sukha. And because of swartha bhav, adharma leads to dukkha. Swartha bhav is the essence of adharma, is the engine of adharma. Okay, so what is meant by seva bhav? Seva bhav, you see, the term seva bhav has two components in it, seva and bhav. What is meant by seva? Seva means acting through one's mind, speech, and body to create welfare and happiness for others, and being selfless and concerned as much about others' good and welfare as about one's own. And bhav, as we know, means a state of existence or a mentality or a consciousness, mentality, state of existence. All these words are, valid translations of the word bhav. So, seva bhav is the mentality which constantly seeks others' benefit without reciprocation, or thinks of the larger picture. Of course, by default, all of us primarily think of our benefit. But a person with seva bhav thinks of their benefit in terms of the benefit of the entire world. He does not want benefit for himself at the cost of the benefit of others. He thinks, when he thinks of his benefit, he thinks, how can I attain that benefit by doing good to the world as a whole? Or rather, at least the world in which I live, my world, the world in which, the people with whom I work, the people with whom I live, the people surrounding me, the people whom I influence in my work. Through good for them, how can I do good for myself? That is seva bhav. So seva bhav involves two things. One is nishkapatta. Nishkapatta means being genuine, being non-duplicitous, being non-pretensive, non-hypocritical. Right? So this is nishkapatta. And the second is paropakarata. We talked about being selfless. So nishkapatta and paropakarata are the two ingredients of seva bhav. And seva bhav is the ingredient of dharma, or the engine of dharma. So one with seva bhav considers others' welfare as important as one's own, rejects the thought of one's good at the cost of others' good. And such a person feels naturally happy. It's not theoretical. It's not about saying it with the mouth. It's about feeling it inside. Feels good when others are happy and feels concerned when others are unhappy. And this person with seva bhav knows this principle very well, because everything is running by this principle in this existence, right? What one gives to this world, the world returns to them. And thereby, one with seva bhav naturally becomes happy because he gives good to the world, good comes back to that person. Okay, so this is all about seva bhav. So, Seva Bhav is based on this very basic thinking. This is taught to school children in our country, in the Indian knowledge system. In school, in primary school, this shloka is taught in Sanskrit. Paropakaraya phalanti vrikshaha, paropakaraya vahanti nadyah, paropakaraya duhanti gavaha, paropakarartham idam shariram. The trees, vrikshaha, they bear fruits, phalanti, for the benefit of others. Paropakaraya. Similarly, rivers, nadyaha, they flow, vahanti, for the benefit of others. The cows, gavaha, duhanti, means give milk for the benefit of others. And similarly, this body, shariram, idam shariram, paropakaraya, is meant for the benefit of others. So this thinking is the basis for all seva bhav. And this is taught to children. That's why the Indian knowledge system is a very sound system. It doesn't think about profit maximization, like the way today's education system is all about competitive advantage, profit maximization, accumulation of wealth. Today's economics is based on the assumption that maximization of individual welfare is the primary motivation of human beings. That's not true. It's true in today's world, yes. In today, especially in the capitalist economy, that's how it's running. The economy is based on that thinking, that maximization of individual wealth, or everybody thinks about maximizing their wealth, and all economic models begin from there. All neoclassical economics begins from there, right? And then branches into other forms of economics. But that is not the economics on which the Indian knowledge system is based. The Indian knowledge system is based on the economics that, yes, you must do business, you must take in return for the benefit of the larger society. You must provide and exchange and barter. Barter and business exists in Indian society, but with the thinking that whatever profits I earn, I'm doing it for the benefit of the world, and I'm going to share. I'm going to give dan, I'm going to conduct yajna. Whatever I do will benefit everybody. I will feed everybody. With the thinking that I am a small part of Ishvara. I'm doing it as a seva to Ishvara. And this is what will give me also ultimate benefit. It's not only for others benefit. By giving others benefit, I will also get benefited. So this thinking is the basis for uh, for um, for all dharma, and this is the essence of the Indian knowledge system. So I will also touch upon very briefly the two characters that I have been citing very often, because the Bhagavad Gita is a part of the Mahabharata, and the Mahabharata revolves around the profiles of these two characters, Duryodhana and Yudhishthira. Duryodhana represents adharma, or is driven by blindness, andhatva, where Yudhishthira is, he's a leader. He's shown as the leader. The Mahabharata profiles Yudhishthira as the leader that we should emulate, and he demonstrates netritva. Netra means the eye, right? So you can see how one of them is the son of a blind personality, Dhritarashtra, and that blindness comes to him. And the other one is Yudhishthira. He's the netra. He's got proper vision. He knows how to see things correctly, and he leads. So netritva exists in him, whereas andhatva exists in Duryodhana. So comparing them, we see that Duryodhana understands dharma in theory. Of course, he's also educated, right? Anybody who undergoes an education, especially in those days, understands what dharma is, at least theoretically, but neither believes in it nor adopts it. Yudhishthira not only understands but lives by dharma. Duryodhana is caught up in adharma and drags others into it. We see him, bringing Karna. Karna is having a adharmic mentality, and Duryodhana drags him further into it. Shakuni, all his brothers. Yudhishthira is inspired by and inspires others in dharma. Duryodhana harms others, even those who help him. Yudhishthira helps others, even those who harm him. You can see the contrast here. Duryodhana seeks public adoration, but it avoids him. Instead, infamy and disgrace seek him. Repeatedly, this happens in Mahabharata. Yudhishthira, on the other hand, does not seek public adoration and following, but those things seek him out. They chase him. You see the opposite. Duryodhana is duplicitous, whereas Yudhishthira is very genuine. And Duryodhana seems externally happy because he's surrounding himself with all the grandeur, the very grandiose manner he projects himself, but internally he's always anxious, frustrated, and miserable. But Yudhishthira is externally miserable, apparently miserable, but internally is very happy and peaceful. So this contrast between these two is a very good way to understand the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And finally, I will conclude today's class with this shloka. How does a leader achieve greatness? Greatness is not by proclamation, not by display, but by qualities. That's what this shows. It says, Gunair uttamatam yati, no ched asana sanstitaha, prasada shikharastopi kakaha kim garudayate. You see, a crow, because a crow can fly in the air, a crow can, fly high and go and sit on top of a tall building. Let's say a crow manages to fly very high, high enough to go to the top of Burj Khalifa. Okay, Burj Khalifa is the tallest building in the world now, and it is more than 1 kilometer tall. Okay, and let's assume a crow is able to fly more than 1 kilometer high and goes and sits on top of Burj Khalifa. And the crow looks down and it's not able to see the other birds. It sees, in the distance there are other crows flying, and it sees some sparrows. It sees even eagles. Even eagles are not flying so high. So the crow thinks, okay, now I have become Garuda. I've become the king. Nobody can come this high. So by doing that, does the crow become Garuda? Absolutely not. Garuda is far, far superior to all birds, right? Garuda is the Vahana of Vishnu, and he's filled with those divine qualities. So a crow can never become Garuda by just flying high or by doing anything else, which with his material abilities. If somebody has to become Garuda, then they have to do the tapasya and follow the principles of dharma to become that. So it says it's only by quality. Similarly, a human being, it's not the shloka is not for crows, it's for human beings. And so human beings don't become great by occupying a big chair, a big position. Okay, just by becoming some big personality in social position, in terms of social position, one does not achieve greatness. That is not greatness. One can be at the lowest position in social hierarchy. One can be a peon in a company. One can be a maid servant in a house. One can be an auto driver for the public. One can be a car driver for a company's officials. But if one has those good qualities, then one is greater than everybody else. That is real greatness. Gunaihi uttamatam yati. One gets greatness by one's qualities and not by one's position, right? So in fact, going back to the media, we read about so many stories of cases. The media thrives on this, of reporting uh, people in big positions, social positions. Right now we're reading the case of some judge who has accumulated a huge amount of money, a high court judge. Probably he's not guilty, I don't know. The case has to come to an end. Maybe that's a false news, but whatever it is, we see so many examples of people who are company CEOs, people who have big entrepreneurs, people who have made huge amount of money, have a big name, or big sportsmen sometimes, demonstrating the worst of qualities, right? Big position but very bad qualities. And we also see people in very humble positions in life, in society, but having great qualities, being very happy, very content, very happy, and willing to do anything within their means to make others happy. And this is the definition of greatness. One achieves greatness through their good qualities and not by a high position in society. Merely by perching itself at the top of a building, a crow does not become Garuda. So, with these words, I will stop today's class, and I hope that we'll be able to reflect on all of this. I will now unmute all of you so that you can ask your questions, offer your comments, etc. Thank you for being with us today. Please feel free to ask any question or offer any comment.
Sir, can you go back to that slide that where we compared Duryodhan and this? I just wanted to, take a snap of that to compare that where we stand on in which particular area.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Here we are. I'll show it to you in a larger size. Yeah, you can take a screenshot of this.
Yes, sir. Got it. Thank you.
So, as we see these things, of course, we need to know that, putting them into practice is not a joke. I mean, it's very much possible, but it's not something that you can do overnight. It will take time as we contemplate. That's the reason why we need to repeatedly read Bhagavad-Gita, read chapter after chapter. We may not be able to understand Sanskrit, but let's read in the language that we can, like Hindi, whatever, Odia, Bengali, whatever language we know. And if we don't know any other Indian language, then at least in English, read and try to understand what it says every single day, and what we can do in our life, what we can change in our life, what we can improve in our life, and help others improve in their lives too. Jayashri, you have something to say?
Yes, sir. 2 points I wanted to share. One is in this particular slide, the most glaring thing is Duryodhana didn't believe in Krishna, and Yudhishthira was a bhakta. So that's another important difference.
Yes.
And the second thing that I wanted to tell was that kama and krodha. I heard somewhere or I read somewhere that I don't remember, but I've read that Hiranyakashipu personified the krodha aspect of a asura. He had all the other asuric qualities that you have mentioned, but the krodha quality was the major one in him, and we see that throughout the story. The way he tortures Prahlada, and his uh, attitude towards people who worship Vishnu, his declaration among his people not to worship Vishnu, all those things. And the Kama aspect was personified by Ravana. And we know Ravana's story very well, that he used that Kama quality very well. Got so many women into under him and all that stuff. So, as you were talking, it reminded me of these two things. So I thought I'll just share.
Thank you.
Sir, my question is hello.
Yes, Puneet, I can hear you.
Yes, sir. So my question is towards the krodha. Sir, we often say krodha is bad, but is it possible to fight a war without krodha? When the two contestants on the two sides are fighting, is it possible to leave the krodha and fight a war? We have seen the Shastras also, many Rishi curses the other people. Like Vashu Bhishma ji was cursed by Rishi Vishwamitra. Isn't that part of a krodha?
So, like we discussed earlier, all of these qualities, kama, krodha, lobha, and some of the other qualities too, which are mentioned under Asuri, also have a daivi aspect to them, in the sense that kama for something good, the desire for something higher, is good kama, like moksha kama, for example, or bhakti kama, seva kama, right? So those are good karma. Similarly, krodha. When krodha is against, like when we discussed krodha, we also discussed that when your anger is directed against adharma, like Bhima's anger. You see Bhima becoming angry whenever he sees adharma happening because he wants to destroy it. He wants to prevent it, destroy it. So that anger is what we should cultivate. That kind of anger is perfectly all right. Of course, we should be mature in how to handle it. Anger is something that is, it can be very dangerous if it's not handled properly, even if it is for the cause of dharma. So, anger with self discipline for the purpose of dharma is good anger, is good krodha. Perfectly correct. And similarly, lobha too, accumulating something, for oneself. Like, for example, prema, Krishna prema, bhakti. The lobha for that prema, lobha for that mentality of seva bhav, greed for that mentality of seva bhav is good lobha. In fact, Rupa Goswami talks about that lobha as something that we should aspire for.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this brings us back to the point of attachment and detachment. How do you become detached? And like I said earlier, detachment or anasakti is not possible in an absolute sense. Means it's not possible that somebody has no attachment at all. Attachment to one thing is given up and attachment to a higher thing is adopted. So in the Bhagavad Gita, when detachment is being spoken about, it means become attached to that higher truth, that Ishvara, become attached to Ishvara, become attached to the process through which you can attain Ishvara. Become attached to Ishvara, who is known by different names, Brahma, Paramatma, Bhagavan, whichever way. Depending on one's understanding, one may address him by different names, but becoming attached to that higher truth, that higher reality, is the source of detachment. Because of that attachment, one develops detachment to the lower things. So, in the same way, when one develops karma for the higher things, one becomes free from the lower karma, this asuri karma.
Sir, I have one question.
Yes, Ruchi.
You've touched on the topic of economic theories in
Yeah,
the context of Gita.
yeah.
Um, Sir, have you, in your experience, since we live in a real world, right? Have you seen from even from PhD perspective, have you seen any emerging economic theories which are fundamentally different from the profit maximization and are more aligned to welfare or duties like this? Basically, more aligned to the philosophies of Shastras.
I think there are attempts to do that. I am not very familiar because I have not got involved with such research. But I think some streams of economics research which pertain to social economics. I have vaguely read a paper long back where they talk about in social entrepreneurship, where the author was talking about uh, that social entrepreneurship is motivated by the desire to maximize others' welfare, thinking of others' good. So there you see a resonation with this, where that person's desire, the social entrepreneur's desire, is to maximize somebody else's profit and not their own profit. So, so there are attempts, but I don't know if any mainstream subject in economics today goes into such detail. There are alternate economic models made with that. Because today's economics is largely focused on, uh, how we can make resources available to everybody, maximize the accessibility and utility that we derive from the different resources that come from this earth, and of course come from within human beings as well, like intelligence, knowledge, and so on. So majority of economic discussion is dominated by that. Even game theory. You can actually, when I was coming here for an interview, when I came for my FRS, that was more than 10 years back when I joined here as a faculty, I was asked this question because I said in the interview that I teach game theory. Game theory I was teaching in my previous institution. After I joined here, I have not taught because that comes under economics area. Um, in game theory, we used to make models. Game theory, we make models where different players are playing games against each other, different outcomes, and the outcome of the outcome that is attained is always a function of the actions of all the players. So the one of the interviewers asked me, is it possible to have game theoretic models, or is it possible for you to bring in, because I was talking about these things, these kind of topics about dharma and so on in my interview. So they said, is it possible to bring this into your class in game theory? I said, yeah, it's possible, because you can actually model the actor, the player, as a person who's doing good, and the other player who's receiving the good as the as the beneficiary. So there are two players now in the game: the person who's doing the good and the person who's receiving the good from them. And what are their specific incentives? What happens? What are the outcomes which give them different kinds of incentives? So I remember describing a particular type of model that you can possibly do. I don't recollect what I said at that point of time, the details. But I don't know. I mean, to answer Ruchi's question in summary, I don't know if any mainstream economic models now actually are going in that direction. So I'm sorry, Ruchi, I don't have a full answer for you.
So that's okay. I'm also curious, but now that you picked up game theory, I remember my brother also told me that game theory has a new emerging. It's not about competition, but there is an emerging mainstream research happening on cooperation using game theory.
Okay.
So where both the parties win and benefit from each other. So I
Yes,
think
yes.
So I think that is one example that came to my mind after you were talking. And I see, Subhashish, you have mentioned about Austrian School of Economics.
Subhashish said that.
He sent a
Well,
message.
actually, I put in the chat window because I think raising the hand as an option was not available.
Okay.
Just put it in that though it's not exactly in the manner that Ruchi was asking, but a different strand of economics which talks about the role of subjective value and market coordination vis-a-vis the rational model of profit maximization, which is normally used in the typical micro models of economics which we study in MBA or even in graduation. So this is slightly different, but yeah, not in the manner that probably Ruchi was seeking.
Yeah. Mhm.
So basically, it doesn't talk about that individual maximization will lead to global optimization in some level. That is not how it talks about. So that's
Yeah.
where the subtle difference is there with the mainstream models. Actually.
Yeah. Actually, I do think intuitively, I think it is possible if somebody devotes themselves, somebody who is knowledgeable in the current streams of economics, is very good and knowledgeable in the current streams of economics. If they want to also develop models which bring in the idea of dharma, selflessness, pararthatva, I think it is very much possible. Intuitively, I think it is possible, and I'll be happy to, offer my inputs to anyone who's moving in that direction based on this.
So the elements that you have been talking about, many of those, like even if we look at, well, not directly economics per se, but then what we see as the ESG imperatives today
Hmm.
and the focus on sustainability, many of those tenets can be drawn from what you have been talking about.
Yeah, yeah,
In that sense, the linkages, the stakeholders beyond that individual maximization or the organizational maximization, at some level, I think there's a focus which has come back because it has it has haunted what what we have tried to follow by that same model of maximization, where gaining at the cost of everything.
yeah.
And I think to that extent, there's a reverse pressure now is coming up. To justify that to that kind of a work, one can link and probably come up with things what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. One can do that. One can do that. Actually, even if we go to some genuine, there are very many genuine people who are, who have really made sacrifices and are working for a larger purpose than themselves. We can catch hold of them. Of course, the United Nations and all these things, these developed countries which are promoting those SDGs and all those things. There's a lot of hypocrisy in that. We have seen also recently when India attended a conference, a climate change conference, we saw what happened, right? I met one of my former students from XLRI who visited me a couple of months back, Pratik. So he was talking about, he attended that meet, that UN meet, and he said it's largely hypocrisy. So, of course, we shouldn't be disturbed by that. The Western countries predominantly are just a show. They just make a show of altruism. It is false altruism. It is not true altruism because they don't believe in it. They just say it so that they appear politically correct. They appear good to the rest of the world. But we are not fools. We can also make out. And but there are people, a lot of genuine people also who are working for others' good, and we can use their work as basis for our models. If somebody wants to work in that line even for their PhD, it may be possible.
So the entrepreneurship theory of effectuation is a different concept, which is away from the capitalistic theory of profit maximization. So effectuation could be a example.
Okay. Sarthak, you were raising your hand for a long time. You had.
Yes, sir. Pranam, sir.
Yes, Pranam.
Sir, so I wanted to ask if, in the line of ideas, research ideas that Ruchi was talking about,
Yeah.
and you also spoke about, Shubhashish also said. So, if you are aware of any scholars who are working in this line, basically developing an economic framework based on dharma. So, in India or outside India. So, if you're aware.
Yeah. At this moment, I'm not. But if I come across, then I can bring it in a future class.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Hmm.
Sir, I had just one point to one observation which I wanted to share. So the Western model right now, more or less, is based on the Adam Smith theory of the wealth of nations. So wherein Adam Smith propounds that if someone works for the best of oneself, then the society is benefited at large.
Yes.
Now, there was a slight tweak when John Nash he brought in the theory wherein if people are working only for their self benefit, then they might end up losing as well.
Hmm.
So he
Yeah.
had a slightly different stance from Adam Smith,
Yeah.
but that is also more or less very much accepted in the Western world that we have. So oligopolies and cartel formations. So how businesses collaborate or form cartels and work together. So John Nash has also got, I think, Nobel Prize for his theories. A stark contrast to this was the communist theory propounded by Karl Marx, and it essentially focused on the welfare of the middle class, basically, or the working class. But, sir, it is not in the same manner or even similar, I would say, as we talk about the dharma mode of economics. So, more or less, it was anti capitalist or anti wealth accumulation, but it was also not dharma driven. So, we see a lot of historic violence or some horrors which were committed in the communist countries. Even China is now operating in a stately managed capitalist kind of a situation. So I don't see if there is an existing economy based on dharma. Maybe Bhutan, but I don't know. That's just a guess. So it can be an interesting case to observe and maybe think upon research on.
Yeah. Yeah. You can start with the work of people who are close to, this Bharatiya way of thinking. There are many social workers, social entrepreneurs, or even individuals who may not be known as big organizations, who have small groups around them and they are working. A good researcher will know how to go down to that ground level and identify such people and bring out their lives. And today, with the help of the internet and social media, it's not so difficult to locate such people. If somebody is intently doing that, it's possible. And I think some PhD research can go from there. And there are journals which will publish papers like that if they are well written.
Yes, sir. Sir, I think one of the key distinctions is the belief in the karma theory, as you said in the Seva Bhav slide, that what you give to the world comes back to you. So,
Hmm.
this particular assumption is inherent to the Indian way of thinking,
Yes.
which is not present in the Western thing, because they have this concept of one life and
Yes.
one eternal life later. So, but we do not have that. So,
Even that one eternal life later is only among the people who have a religious orientation, like the Christians. Otherwise, the majority of the world doesn't have that too, right? It's only about one life. This is the one life, and it ends with that. So
right.
maximize your sensual enjoyment in this one life.
Right, right. Similar to the Charvaka system, I
Yeah,
guess. I guess.
yeah, yeah. So the principles of karma, which are which I mean this what we call as what in English is called today as the law of karma. What you give to this world comes back to you. Dominated our consciousness, dominated the society because it comes straight from the. It's based in the Veda, and people were very cautious about doing wrong, and people were very generous about doing good, and that gave stability to society. It made the society very strong, stable, prosperous. Economic prosperity came from that thinking. right? India was so economically prosperous, intellectually prosperous. There's so much scholarly accomplishment in India in all fields, not just kind of literature, but mathematics, astronomy, medicine, architecture, everywhere, art. The Indian knowledge system, which the government is now talking about, covers all those fields too. There's so many texts they are bringing out now. The government is giving money and they're all coming out. Om स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः परिपालयन्तां न्यायेन मार्गेण महिं महिषाः गोब्राह्मणेभ्यो शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे धन्यवादाः. Thank you for joining and we'll meet again next Sunday.